Parenting doesn't come with a handbook, but now there's a community where you can connect with others on a parenting journey. The Parenthood Podcast, hosted by Leonie Akhidenor, is a place where moms and dads have a platform for some real talk when it comes to raising kids. And the conversations run deep, from dealing with pre- and postnatal depression to moms and dads losing their sex drives after having kids. There's a lot of topics to explore. Leonie shares her advice on a range of topics, including how she sets her day up for success with the kids.
I wake up deliberately early at 5 a.m. and then look, but regardless, my kids are up probably an hour to an hour and a half later. Yeah. I feel as though when my children walk down those stairs, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for you.
Let's
now.
do this.
Let's go. I'm into battle. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Yeah. I'm like, what do you got? Like, I'm prepared. I've got my to-do list because I'm a big, everyone's asking, how do you juggle it? I'm a big to-do list kind of gal. So I'll often go, these are my 3 priorities for the day, try to tackle those. If I don't do that, I find I'm waking up with the wave of chaos that it is. And I'm just kind of floating through the day and kind of going, what just happened? So I set myself, my morning is kind of everything for me.
Joining me now with more on all things parenting is the parenting guru, Leonie Akhidenor. It's so great to have you on Bloom.
Thank you so much for having me.
So how did you come up with this cool platform idea where parents can really listen to some real talk?
Yeah, look, fundamentally, I'd been going through a really tough time in life. I had experienced pre- and postnatal depression for the second time. It was COVID. In Melbourne, Australia, where I'm from, we were locked down for what felt like a whole year. And we weren't even allowed to leave sort of our neighbourhood. It was very stringent. And I felt so alone in my experience. I had an 18-month-old son as well as my newborn. And I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to hear real stories of challenge, struggle, what is happening behind closed doors, so that I can feel less alone in my experience, but also so that I could potentially learn from their lessons as well.
And I think back, because my daughters are much older now, but with my now 24-year-old, I had some severe, postpartum depression, because I was in the hospital with her 3 months leading up to her delivery. And, back then there was nobody really to share your concerns with. You were almost embarrassed to even talk to your own doctor, because you're like, here I have this healthy baby girl who's a gift from God, and I'm depressed, and I felt so guilty about that. But you get on a platform like yours and you realize, hey, I'm not alone.
Exactly right. And I think that's what gives so many people comfort. And for me, I guess a point of difference for us too was I wanted to bring couples on the show. So there's amazing platforms out there, lots of them for mothers, a few for dads, and I'm talking more about the Australian market, but less where they're bringing on couples, same sex or heterosexual or whatever, and we're sitting down and we're really talking about the things that matter and the things that we are stressed about. And obviously it goes without saying, parenting is the most beautiful experience, but it is important to bring some of the shadow side of parenting to light.
Yeah, and it is a lot to juggle, and it can really wreak havoc on your mental health. Is that something that you guys talk a lot about?
Absolutely, and we really go down to, okay, well, what is it the guest might be feeling? What are some of the symptoms? And so let's break that down. What does that look like? So that those listening can sort of sit back and go, oh, that could be me, or that could be my friend, or these are things we can be looking out for, because this is stuff that happens, again, to your point, that people don't talk enough about.
And I know when you have partners on the show, another big subject that is brought to light is the fact that your love life and your time together kind of goes out the window.
Exactly. Lack of intimacy, particularly in the early years of parenting, is a very big topic. We've had over 140 episodes of our podcast, and I've spoken to hundreds of parents during that time. It always comes up. So I feel it's so critical to bring that discussion to light so that couples out there are realizing that it's not just me, and okay, what can we do about it to reignite the flame?
Yeah, and so what are some of the advice that you're getting from your experts or you're sharing with parents?
Absolutely. So look, first and foremost, particularly as women, we need to feel emotionally connected before being able to really give. And often in those early years of parenting, we are just so flooded. We have nothing left to give because baby's up top or children's are up top, and then all the other responsibilities, and then relationships sit sort of here, and then we sit down the bottom. So if we're not allocating time for ourselves, even if it's a 15-minute, sit outside, read a book in the sun, if that's what lights you up. If we're not allocating time for ourselves, it's very hard to then give to others. Once we've allocated that time to ourselves, it's also deliberately prioritizing time as a couple. So saying, I don't know, once a month or once every 6 weeks, we're going to have our little date night without the children, without all that interruption, the two of us. It's our opportunity to reconnect. That is critical also.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do, especially in the early days of parenting, is to put your relationship on the back burner, because oftentimes then it just stays there.
And it becomes habitual. Those behaviours, we could sort of call it the roommate philosophy. You're just passing ships, and the lack of intimacy, and it can be as small as just you forget to do the kiss hello or the kiss goodbye, or, touching that other person as you walk past them in the kitchen. Often we don't even do these little things because we are so touched out by our children. Prior to having babies, who did we give all of our touch to? Our partners. And then we have children who are hanging off us. Our bodies have changed, perhaps, if we're female, and all the things. You're sleep deprived and everything like that. And you're just like, you look at your partner and you say, don't breathe, don't touch me.
Right.
Like I'm done, I'm tapped out. So sometimes we have to be quite deliberate about these acts of affection so that we can start building intimacy up again.
Do you hope that your podcast also can help people just start bridging those lines of communication?
Absolutely. And we really do encourage, let's talk about things rather than let resentment build, which can often happen. Particularly, we see it, for example, with inequality in the household duties. So one parent, on average, mother, I'm going to generalise here, feels as though that she's had to bear the brunt of the responsibilities when it comes to the mental load, all the things we have to remember, who's going to book the immunisation, who's going to do the drop-offs and pick-ups and organise all of that, like the daily tasks. And so what often happens is when that inequality breeds, one partner starts feeling resentful, the other partner starts experiencing a level of passive aggressiveness and goes, what's just happened to our relationship? And no one's talking about it. And then you let it go, and eventually, like what happened with me, you have an argument over absolutely nothing. Like, you put the coffee cup in the wrong spot and that person explodes because you haven't spoken about the fundamental issue. Perhaps it's inequality, for example. So critical. We bring a lot of these stories to light so that others can sit there thinking, oh yeah, me too. And okay, that's how they approached that conversation. Perhaps I can consider approaching that conversation in my household as well.
Does conflict resolution actually happen real time on the show? I mean, do people really open up and share their feelings?
We do, and look, I think it's a premise of being on the show, you have to have an element of vulnerability. That's what the premise of the show is. That's how we really give back to our community. So I know that a few times we've had, like, for example, a couple who said, I was really, footloose and fancy free, and there was a mum and the dad was there, and he said, yeah, but ever since, having a baby, we need to get organised. And she said, yeah, but sometimes, like, you're just too on the schedule. And he's like, yeah, but if we don't do that, we're going to miss out on all the things we have to do. Time,
right.
Time is ticking. And then he's sort of like, often you think I'm coming at you or attacking you. I'm not. I'm just trying to work out the best way to manage this family.
Yeah.
And it sort of started intensifying a little bit. And I was like,
but
ooh.
hey, that's how you lay it out there and get things solved. All right.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Well, we're going to share this story on bloomtampabay.com. And we are thrilled that Leonie joined us on our podcast, The Bloom Health Club, in the WFLA Now Streaming Center to continue this incredible conversation. You can stream the full episode anytime on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.